The plexiglass barriers we've grown accustomed to in restaurants and businesses, like 13 on your side, may be doing more harm than good.
Now, that's according to an indoor air researcher from Harvard, but we wanted to get that claim checked out for ourselves.
13 on your side's Justin Bachman sat down with one infectious disease specialist who says while they aren't perfect, the barriers are an important part of slowing the spread.
Mitigation strategies have to be stacked one on top of the other. So this is the Swiss cheese model of infection prevention.
Dr. Natasha Bagdasarian is an expert in infectious diseases. She calls it Swiss cheese because no one method is going to be perfect, but using multiple safeguards, you're hoping that the holes left by one protective measure are covered by another.
So the barriers are one slice of Swiss cheese and perhaps a slice of Swiss cheese that has very large holes. So on their own, these barriers are not going to be effective. When they're combined with other mitigation strategies, they could be helpful.
Where those barriers do help out most, Bagdasarian says, is catching larger droplets like ones from sneezes or coughs.
We know that the SARS-CoV-2 virus spreads in particles of different size.
Bagdasarian says smaller airborne particles can move around those barriers, which is why proper ventilation is so important. She says if a space doesn't have good airflow, it may be time to say goodbye to those barriers.
Is if you are in a really poorly ventilated space and people aren't wearing masks who are unvaccinated, and then you just have these barriers that are stopping airflow. So what little airflow you're trying to get into that space is being blocked by a barrier.
So we know that those barriers do something. And for restaurant owners like the owner of Angel's Thai Cafe in downtown Grand Rapids, he says if it makes his customers a little bit more comfortable, then it's worth it.
I think it takes both sides, but myself as a business owner, I am definitely going to do 120% of what I possibly can to make the customers feel safe as possible.
The dining room only seats 8 people for the moment, using social distancing as an added layer of protection on top of the barrier that sits on the counter.
I think it's physically seeing something like that definitely puts their mind at ease.
Looking back to the Swiss cheese model from Dr. Bagdasarian, she says one slice will do more than the rest.
Vaccinations are the piece of Swiss cheese with the tiniest holes. They are really our best level of protection. They are the absolute #1 thing we can do to stop transmission.
Justin Bachman, 13 on your side.